My name is Clara Rousseau. I'm 33 years old. 6 years ago, my older sister told my parents I had been expelled from law school for cheating. She fabricated everything. That one lie cost me my entire family. They stopped answering my calls. They removed my photos from the hallway. They didn't come to my graduation. They weren't at my wedding. For 6 years, I was erased from my own bloodline. Then, 5 weeks ago, my sister was brought into the emergency department, unconscious, broken, barely alive. The trauma team called for the head of neurosurgery. The door swung open. And when my mother read the name embroidered on the white coat, walking toward her dying daughter, she grabbed my father's wrist so hard she fractured his watch. Before we go further, take a second to like and subscribe, but only if this story genuinely moves you. And drop your city and local time in the comments. I want to know who's listening and where. Now let me take you back. Fall of 2018, a dining room in Albany, New York, and the last time my father ever looked at me like I belonged. There were two daughters in the Rousseau house, but only one the house was built around. My sister Vivian is 4 years older. She was magnetic from birth. Debate team captain, homecoming court, the girl who could walk into any room and own it within 30 seconds. My parents, Martin and Elaine Rousseau, working class Albany, factory supervisor, and dental receptionist, worshipped the ground she performed on. They valued two things more than anything: how things looked and whether you did what you were told. Vivian delivered both like clockwork. I was the other one, the one reading caseload textbooks at the holiday table while Vivian entertained the relatives. I wasn't defiant. I wasn't a problem child. I was simply furniture. And there's a real difference between being forgotten and never being noticed in the first place. Small example: 10th grade, I qualified for a national mock trial competition. Only student in our district. Same weekend, Vivian had a charity fashion show she organized. One guess where my parents spent their Saturday. When I came home with a trophy, my mother glanced at it and said, "Oh, that's nice, sweetie." She never asked what case I argued. She never once did. I told myself it didn't sting. I buried everything into academics, into ambition, into becoming so undeniable they'd have to look. I figured if I couldn't be the daughter they celebrated, I'd be the daughter they couldn't possibly ignore. And for one brief, beautiful moment, it worked. The day I was accepted into Columbia Law School, something shifted. My father sat at the dining room table, read the letter twice, and looked up at me with an expression I'd been chasing for 19 years. He said 6 words I'll never forget, but I'll get to those. First, you need to understand what Vivian did when she felt the light moving away from her. The acceptance letter arrived on a Thursday in March. Vivian was home for the weekend. She was 23, working as an events coordinator at a mid-tier marketing firm in Syracuse. Decent job, average life. Average was Vivian's ceiling, but she would burn the house down before she admitted it. Dad read the letter. He said it slowly, like the words had a weight. Columbia Law. That's Ivy League. Then he looked at me and said, maybe the quiet one had it in her all along. It wasn't warm, but it was the closest to warmth I'd ever received from him. I held onto it like a lifeline. Mom called 3 people that night: her sister, the neighbor, her best friend from church. Clara got into Columbia. Can you believe it? Her voice hit a frequency I had never heard directed at me before. Pride, actual unfiltered pride. At dinner, I caught Vivian watching me. She was smiling, but the smile ended at her lips. Behind her eyes, something was moving, calculating, rearranging. I know that now. Back then, I just thought she was tired from the drive. Over the next few months, Vivian called constantly, 3, 4 times a week. How are your classes? Who are your friends? What professors do you have? She remembered every name, every detail. I thought my sister was finally seeing me. I thought my acceptance had unlocked some bond between us. I was handing her a loaded weapon and thanking her for holding it. Second year of law school. That's when the ground opened. My closest friend at Columbia was a woman named Jess Okafor. She'd grown up bouncing between group homes, no family, no safety net. Jess was the reason I survived first year. When I called home during finals week and my mom said, "Can't talk now, Clara, Vivian's having a crisis at work," it was Jess who sat with me on our apartment floor and said, "Forget them. We have contracts to memorize." Jess was diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor in October of my second year. No family to care for her, just me. I went to the dean the next morning, explained everything. He approved a formal leave of absence. 1 semester, caregiver status, all documented, my spot guaranteed for spring. It was completely legitimate. I moved into Jess's spare room, drove her to treatments, held her hand at 4 in the morning when the pain made her scream into a pillow. I called Vivian to tell her. I still don't fully understand why. Maybe I still believed the performance was real. Her voice was honey. Oh my God, Clara, I'm so sorry. Take all the time you need. I won't say anything to mom and dad. You know how they worry. 4 days later, she called our parents. I don't know exactly what she told them. I wouldn't learn the full architecture of her lie until 6 years later, when it collapsed in the one place none of us expected. But the damage was immediate and total. The call came at midnight. I was in a plastic chair beside Jess's hospital bed. Bad reaction to treatment, emergency admission. My phone lit up. Dad. Your sister told us everything. His voice was steel wrapped in ice. The expulsion, the cheating scandal, all of it. Dad, that's not. Vivian showed us the proof. She showed us documents. I pressed my back against the wall. What documents? What proof? Dad, I'm sitting in a hospital right now, taking care of. Vivian said you'd have a story ready. She said you'd try to explain it away. My mother took the phone. Her voice was trembling. How could you lie to us for an entire year, Clara? Mom, please, I filed a leave of absence. I can show you the paperwork. I'll give you the dean's direct number. Enough. Dad again. Don't contact this house until you're ready to stop lying. You've humiliated this family. The line went dead. I sat on that hospital floor for half an hour. Jess's monitors beat behind the curtain. My phone screen still showed the call length, 3 minutes and 47 seconds. That's how long it takes to lose your entire family. 20 minutes later, a text from Vivian. I'm sorry, Clara. I had to tell them. I couldn't keep covering for you anymore. Followed by a sad face emoji. She wasn't sorry. She had just executed the most surgical strike of her life, and she signed it with punctuation. I tried. I need you to understand that. I tried everything humanly possible from 600 miles away with no money and a dying friend in the next room. Over the next week, I called my parents 17 times. First 4 went to voicemail. By the 5th, Dad's number was disconnected. Mom blocked me 3 days later. I sent 3 emails. The longest had my leave documents attached, the dean's phone number, Jess's oncologist contact information. Everything a rational person would need. No response to any of them. I wrote a handwritten letter, mailed it express. 6 days later, it came back. Returned to sender, unopened. My mother's handwriting on the envelope. I called my Aunt Pauline, Dad's younger sister, the only person in our family who'd ever treated me like I mattered. Pauline called Dad the same night. She called me back 40 minutes later, voice heavy. He told me to mind my own business, honey. He said you made your choice. Pauline tried to tell him about the leave of absence. Dad hung up on her. 1 week, 17 calls, 3 emails, 1 letter, 1 mediator. Every attempt rejected, blocked, or sent back. And here's what gutted me most. This wasn't new. This was the pattern of my whole life compressed into its most violent form. Every competition they missed, every achievement they overlooked, every time Vivian's version was gospel and mine was noise. This was just the final, loudest repetition. On the 8th day, I stopped calling. Not because I surrendered, because I realized they had chosen a long time ago. Vivian just gave them permission to stop pretending. Jess died on a Tuesday morning in January. Quiet. Just a flatline tone and gray winter light through the hospice window. I was the only one there. I found a note she'd hidden inside my constitutional law textbook. Our inside joke, she'd bookmarked the chapter on due process with a yellow sticky note that read, Life isn't fair, but you are. Finish this, Clara. Become who I already know you are, and don't let anyone, especially your own blood, tell you your worth. She wrote it weeks before she died. She knew she wouldn't be there when I'd need it most. I went back to Colombia in February. No family, no safety net. Extra loans, a part-time research position, and more ramen than I'll ever admit to. I graduated on time. No one from Albany came. But I didn't stop at law school. Something had shifted in me during those months caring for Jess, watching the medical teams, being inside that world, seeing the difference a surgeon could make in a single moment. I applied to medical school, got in, went through every brutal year of it, matched into neurosurgery. Residency at Meridian University Hospital, one of the top trauma centers on the East Coast. That's where I met Dr. Helen Ashford. Helen, 61, chief of surgery emeritus, sharp as a scalpel and twice as precise. She became the mentor I desperately needed and the mother figure I'd lost. Fourth year of residency, I met Daniel Reeves, civil rights attorney, quiet strength, dry humor, the first person I told the full story to who didn't flinch or pity me. He just listened. Then he said 4 words. You deserve so much better. We married on an October afternoon in Helen's garden. 28 guests. Daniel's mother walked me down the aisle. I'd sent an invitation to Albany. It came back the way my letter had, unopened. Aunt Pauline was there, though. She cried enough for 2 parents. 6 years passed. I became someone they wouldn't recognize. Now pause here for a second. If you've ever been in a situation where your family refused to hear your truth because someone else's lie was louder, drop a fire emoji in the comments. And if you think my parents are going to regret everything, type karma. Let's keep going because what happened next, even I didn't see it coming. January present day, I'm 33. I'm the chief of neurosurgery at Meridian University Hospital. I have a house with a garden, a husband who makes me laugh every single day, and a rescue dog named Portia, after the character from The Merchant of Venice who delivers the greatest courtroom speech ever written. She has never once judged me for eating ice cream at 1 a.m. It's a good life, a real life, built with my own 2 hands. But there's an ache that never fully disappears. It lives in the hollow between your ribs, right where a family is supposed to sit. I don't check my phone for Albany area codes anymore, but every Thanksgiving, there's a moment when I count the plates and feel the absence like a phantom limb. Thursday night, 2:47 a.m. The pager dragged me from sleep. Daniel shifted beside me. Portia lifted her head from the foot of the bed. The screen glowed, level 1 trauma, MVC, single female 37, severe head trauma, hemorrhaging, unstable, ETA, 9 minutes. I was dressed in 4 minutes, driving in 6. I badged in through the ambulance bay and walked to the trauma suite. My team was assembling. 2 residents, neuro nurse, anesthesia standing by. I picked up the intake tablet from the charge nurse station and swiped to the incoming chart. Patient, Vivian M. Rousseau, DOB, June 22nd, 1987. Emergency contact, Martin Rousseau, father. I stopped walking. Everything pulled back. The beeping, the intercoms, the fluorescent hum. For 3 seconds, I wasn't a surgeon. I was a 27-year-old sitting on a hospital floor in Manhattan, phone still warm, listening to a deadline. Dr. Rousseau? My charge nurse, Grace, appeared beside me. You okay? I set the tablet down. I'm fine. Prep Suite 1. Page Dr. Nakamura. I want him on standby. The ambulance siren screamed closer, and behind that ambulance I knew were 2 people I hadn't faced in 6 years. The stretcher came fast. Vivian was strapped down, unconscious, blood matting her hair, oxygen mask fogging with shallow breaths. The paramedics fired off numbers, pressure dropping, pupils unequal, signs of epidural hematoma. Behind them, running, my parents. My mother looked like she'd aged 15 years. Bathrobe, mismatched shoes. My father was in a wrinkled polo and khakis thrown on in panic. His face was ash gray. That's my daughter, he shouted past triage. I need to see the surgeon in charge. Grace, who I've worked beside for 4 years, put both hands up. Sir, the family waiting area is down the hall. The chief of neurosurgery is handling this personally. Dad grabbed her arm. Get me the chief, now. Grace looked through the glass partition at me. Gown, gloved, my badge visible. She read the name, read it again. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second. I gave a small shake of my head. Not now. Grace composed herself. Sir, the chief is prepping for surgery. You'll be updated as soon as possible. This way, please. My parents were led down the corridor. Mom was whispering prayers, knuckles white. Dad kept turning back, searching every window. "She's all we have," he said to no one. "Please, she's all we have." I heard it through the glass, every syllable, "She's all we have," as if I had never drawn breath. I stepped into the scrub room, gave myself 30 seconds, water running hot over my hands, my reflection in the steel mirror, warped, distorted, the way everything felt. Then I paged Nakamura. "I have a conflict. The patient is a family member. I'm disclosing now and documenting everything. If my judgment wavers at any point, you take over. No questions." "Understood, Chief." I pulled on fresh gloves, pushed through the OR doors, and looked down. My sister's face, bruised, swollen, the oxygen mask fogging and clearing. She looked smaller, older. There were lines around her eyes that hadn't been there 6 years ago. For 3 seconds, she wasn't the woman who destroyed my life. She was a patient on my table, and that was exactly what I needed her to be. "Let's go." 10 blade. 4 hours and 12 minutes. Epidural hematoma. Evacuated. Depressed skull fracture. Repaired. Cerebral contusion with active bleeding from a ruptured middle meningeal artery. Clipped, cauterized, controlled. My hands moved the way 10,000 hours of training built them to move. Steady when precision mattered. Fast when seconds mattered more. I didn't speak unless necessary. Suction, irrigate, bipolar, retract. At 7:01 a.m., I placed the final closing suture. Vivian's vitals was stable. Intracranial pressure normalizing. She was alive. Dr. Nakamura, who'd stood silently in the corner the entire time, pulled his mask down. "Clara, that was masterful. You want me to talk to the family?" I peeled off my gloves, washed my hands, automatic, methodical. "No," I said, "this one's mine." I straightened my scrub top, checked my badge, took one breath. Then I walked toward the waiting room. The hallway had never felt so long. My parents sat in the center row, rigid, sleepless, wrecked. Dad stood when the doors opened. Reflex, the need to take charge. "Doctor, how is she? Is Monica—" He stopped. His eyes fell to my badge, climbed to my face, fell to the badge again. I watched recognition hit him like something physical. A tremor starting in his hands and crawling to his jaw. Mom looked up a half second later. Her mouth open, no sound. Her hand shut to Dad's forearm and clamped down with a force that would leave 4 fingerprint-shaped bruises. 5 seconds of silence holding 6 years. I spoke first. Calm, clinical. The same voice I use for every family in this room. "Mr. and Mrs. Rousseau, I'm Dr. Rousseau, Chief of Neurosurgery. Your daughter Vivian sustained a severe epidural hematoma and skull fracture in the collision. Surgery was successful. She's stable and in the neurological ICU. You can see her in approximately 90 minutes. Mr. and Mrs., not Mom and Dad." I watched that register. I watched it cut. My mother stepped forward, arms lifting, a sob already breaking. "Clara! Oh my God, Clara!" I stepped back, half a step, polite, unmistakable. She froze. Her hands hung in the air, then slowly, painfully dropped. Dad's voice came out like something dragged across gravel. "You're a surgeon." "I am." "You're the chief." "I am." But Vivian said, "What exactly?" He closed his mouth, opened it, closed it. I could see 6 years of certainty collapsing in real time. "We thought you were expelled," Mom whispered. "She told us, she showed us." "She told you I was expelled for cheating, that I was living with someone dangerous, that I was broke and drifting, that I refused to contact you." I kept my voice level, no tremor, no tears. None of it was true, not one word. Behind me, through the glass partition, Grace pressed a hand to her mouth. A resident looked away, jaw clenched. Dad tried to redirect. Old instinct, "This isn't the time, Clara." "I know. I just spent 4 hours making sure your daughter survives. So yes, Dad, I'm aware of the timing." He had nothing. For the first time in my life, my father, a man who had never been without a verdict, had absolutely nothing. The silence was doing what I never could. Then Grace appeared at the door. "Dr. Rousseau, sorry to interrupt." The department chair saw the overnight surgical log. He asked me to pass along that the Physician of the Year selection committee sends congratulations on tonight's outcome. She said it routinely. She had no idea she'd just detonated a second bomb. Mom looked at me. Physician of the Year? It's an internal recognition. Excuse me. I need to check post-op vitals. I walked toward the neuro ICU, measured steps, spine straight. I didn't look back, but I heard my mother's voice behind me, small and shattered. Martin, what have we done? And I heard something I'd never heard in my life. My father saying nothing. Because silence for the first time was the only honest thing he had left. The truth came out in layers after that. Aunt Pauline arrived with 6 years of evidence on her phone. Screenshots, documents, my graduation photo, Pauline the only family member in the frame. A text from Vivian sent 4 years prior. Don't tell Mom and Dad about Clara's career. It'll confuse them. They're finally at peace. Vivian, when she woke, tried one last performance. Tears, deflection, the grieving sister act. It lasted about 90 seconds before Dad said 5 words he'd never said to her before. Stop talking, Vivian. Just stop. My parents started counseling in February. Mom took to it immediately. Dad sat in the chair and answered in monosyllables. Progress comes in different shapes. Vivian sent a written confession to every family member she'd lied to. 41 people. Aunt Pauline confirmed delivery to every address. I'm not closing the door on any of them, but I'm the one who decides when it opens, how wide, and who walks through. Last Sunday morning. Light snow. I'm making pancakes. Daniel is grinding coffee, singing badly. Portia is stationed under the table, hopeful about crumbs. The doorbell rings. Mom and Dad on the porch. Dad holding a bag of oranges like he doesn't know what to do with his hands. Mom holding a tin of her butter cookies, the ones she used to bake for every event of Vivian's and never once for mine. Hi, Mom says, nervous, hopeful. Come in, coffee's almost ready. Dad steps inside, looks around the kitchen he's never seen, the life he almost never knew existed. Can I help with anything? I look at him. My father, 64 years old, standing in my kitchen for the first time, asking permission to be useful. You can set the table, Dad. He nods, goes to the cabinet I point to, takes out plates, counts them. 4, 4. He sets them down, one by one, carefully, like they might shatter if he isn't gentle. It's not perfect. It's not the childhood I deserved or the reconciliation movies promise, but it's real. And real is more than I had for a very long time. My name is Dr. Clara Rousseau. I'm 33 years old, and I am finally, slowly, carefully letting myself be someone's daughter again. 4 plates. It's a start. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own family, your own boundaries, or someone you lost and found again, leave a comment. Tell me, what would you have done? Would you have opened that door? And if you want more stories like this one, check the link in the description. I think you'll feel it just as deeply. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time.